Hello again, guys. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. I know it's been a long time, but I did manage to finish a few books here and there, and I want to talk about one of them. It's called 6 Novels in Woodcuts by Lynd Ward. It's in 2 volumes. I only finished one of the volumes, but I liked it a lot, and just kind of want to tell you guys about it. The first volume is composed of God's Man, Madman's Drum, and Wild Pilgrimage, all by the author Lynd Ward. And I think they're very special because, like the title says, 6 novels in woodcuts. If you're an artist and you have done prints with linoleum, rubber, or wood, you know how hard it is to get a good image. They are wordless novels, wordless graphic novels. Just depiction after depiction, frame after frame, print after print of things happening. The first novel, God's Man, is about an artist who gets presented with the chance of using this sort of magical, it's not very specified as magical, but it's this ancient paintbrush that was handed down through generations and through the ages, and was handled by really important leaders and artists. He started rising in the ranks. Eventually he gets corrupted and falls from grace. One problem that I did have with it was that all of the characters were very flat. There's almost no identity to them at all. But even the author, he kind of acknowledges this. But I don't see that as a negative, because given the medium and its limitations, I think it's understandable that it would be very hard to kind of give a backstory to each of the characters or more complexity to them. And in a way, I see this first novel, at least God's Man, as a sort of myth or sort of a fable with some lesson to learn at the end. Most of the novels actually have a very spiritual and religious theme. And that's because Lynd Ward grew up in a very religious family, and that obviously had a huge impact on him. In some of the essays that are actually in the book, he says that he's grateful for that sort of strictness and closed-mindedness that his family did have on him, because it made him go out and look for art himself. And you can definitely see that there are some allusions to freedom and some very introspective lessons to be learned from some of these. Madman's Drum, he completely fixes the one-dimensionality of the characters. It has to do with a slaver that after a run after he captures slaves in somewhere in some country, he steals an artisanal drum, and that's how you start the novel. You start seeing the story of him and his family through the span of, I think, 3 or 4 generations. I think maybe the drum is cursed. I'm not sure, because there's a lot of tragedies going on, especially inside the family, that affect not only the family, but the town they're in and the social movements. There's a lot going on in this one. He totally, completely goes 180 and just gives it so much more complexity to at least the main character. Not so much the supporting characters, but you do see some of that identity and personality within the main character, which is the son of the slaver. You see him go from good to bad. He's very, I don't want to say complex, because again, the limitations of the medium don't allow for that sort of complexity that a regular novel or a regular graphic novel would have. But he's definitely a gray character, very in between good and evil. He's very concerned about his family, and he would do anything, even some really questionable things, to protect his daughters. Wild Pilgrimage is a more abstract story. It's about this man who is a factory worker, and it starts with him walking through the city, and you see cityscapes of these giant factories, and every worker basically very tired and depressed and living in poverty. And the only way that they can relieve themselves is by going to prostitutes and alcohol and drugs and drinks and all this. But he doesn't want to live that life. He's very tired of sort of working under his superiors, and he starts having these visions. They consist of him kind of freeing himself from his oppressors. Some ring true and lead him on through a better life. Others, however, end up kind of tragically or are very misfortunate for him. So he has to kind of start again, because there's always a peak that he reaches, and then another vision comes and he tries to enact upon it, but it ends up very wrong, and it's just a clusterfuck after clusterfuck. The one thing that I really like from this volume is that you see Lynd Ward's art progress and completely just improve, not only visually, but his narration improves, the quality of each frame. When it comes to the visual part of it, God's Man, which is the first one that he first published, I think in 1929, something like that, or late 1920s. It's a very rough style. It's very expressive and impressionistic, very black and white. There's almost no gradients at all. There's a lot of texture, but it's very rough, and you can tell that this guy has talent, but he hasn't quite reached that peak, that excellent plateau that all masters have. But it's still really good. Very dark images. His sense of composition is great, it's amazing, and is complemented by the play of light and dark. A lot of the characters don't have a lot of good anatomy, but that doesn't really matter, because the focal point is shared by both the visuals and the narration in God's Man. And you see a lot of high contrast images, which is great because he's able to create really dark and dense moods, very gritty, especially in the first scene of God's Man. We see the artist. He's out at sea on a boat, and there's a storm going on, crazy storm, and you see waves going back and forth, and he's painting this beautiful storm, and it's a pleasure to see that style first in God's Man, then evolve into Madman's Drum. You start seeing him use more curved lines, a lot of different angles. He starts playing a lot with texture, and of course his composition is still very good, still holds up. Then we will get to Wild Pilgrimage. We really see him already kind of comfortable with what he's doing. You see him playing with different textures, different lighting, even different color. Some of his essays are in there, and he talks about the art of engraving. He basically describes wood engraving, and it's just a pleasure because I've done some of that stuff, and for me to know that someone else, a master like this, had that same mindset as I did when I was doing those kind of things, and when I do my drawings and my paintings, it's just great. It starts with a really nice introduction by Art Spiegelman, which some of you might know. He's the author of Mouse, which is the tale of a Holocaust survivor. I read Mouse, I think sometime in the 90s, around middle school, maybe 99, something like that. And it had a great impact on me. And to know that that same author loves this guy as much as I do is great. If you haven't read Mouse, of course, go read it now. So if you enjoy graphic novels, if you like art, if you like ink art, black and white art, I recommend this. I definitely recommend this. You'll love this. I know I did. I loved it so much that while I was working on this other video that I wanted to show you guys, I completely stopped and said, you know what, I have to make a video of this because this was so freaking good. I'm pretty sure there are some standalone versions of each of these. And you can probably find some of his images on Google somewhere. So check out his art. If you like it, buy one of his novels. If you like one of those, buy this compilation. You'll enjoy it. I know that he has drawn and written a few other novels, including some children's books. I'm actually looking into those right now. Maybe if I find them somewhere, I'll buy them. Maybe I'll make a video on those if I like them. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. If you've read any graphic novels lately, if you have any good recommendations, let me know.